Hello and welcome to Snapshot. I'm your host, Alan Wolfe, and on this edition, we have a very special behind-the-scenes look at the world of taxidermy. Now, that probably brings to mind stuffing, not like your Thanksgiving turkey, but perhaps more like my cameraman, Glenn Lewis, if you could see him. But our first order of business, seriously today, is to find out exactly what taxidermy is all about. And with us today is Chantel Paz. Thank you so much for having us. And you are an expert at taxidermy. And you don't look really old enough to be an expert. Have you been around this a long time?
I've been fishing for many years. Not a total expert, but I've been around it for a little while.
And of course, taxidermy is not just fish. It's birds and even
correct.
Cameramen. Watch your step, Glenn Lewis. The first thing I see here that caught my eye is this beautiful duck, is it?
Yes, it's a wood duck. We have many.
Doesn't feel like wood.
No, but
that's the variety, right?
That's the variety. That's the name of the duck.
Are these the actual feathers?
Those are the actual feathers. Birds and mammals are much easier to do than fish themselves. Fish, you don't have, say, the feathers, which could hide any flaws that might have happened because of the shootings or just skin defects that the bird may have. Taxidermy itself, this is an original skin mount.
Now, is this actually the fish, or is this made of another substance?
The inside is made out of plastic or plaster. Depends on when it was made. This fish is about 50 somewhat years old. You can tell by the scaling on the fish, the cracks on the fish, which is the definition. Because of the years, the skin is just cracked up. Our shop, NAT Taxidermy, had repainted this fish for this house.
Is this the actual skin?
Yes, it is.
So this is not artificial at all?
This is not artificial at all. Many people nowadays believe more in releasidermy, so more people are turning to fiberglass fish, which in turn might save more fish.
Well, taxidermy has an extensive history back to Egypt.
Absolutely. People back in Egypt used to embalm, like mummification, which is same thing as taxidermy, except for that you don't use the original skin. In ancient Egypt, they used to use mummification to preserve the bodies of the people that they wanted to preserve. In ancient Peruvian times, about 1200 AD, they used to mount birds as decoration for ceremonies, such as ducks or also geese. They used to make them for decoration and for ceremonies and stuff like that.
Well, we certainly have a lot more to see, and
Absolutely.
Onward we move. Come on along. You know, Chantel, this fish looks as if it just came out of the water. Is there a certain technique to this? Much different looking from the one we saw before. And is it real? Is this the actual fish?
Well, this is a fiberglass mount. We have not used any real parts of the fish on this fish. The idea of taxidermy is to make a replica of your fish the way you have caught it. A lot of people.
How do you do it?
Okay, a lot of people believe in releasidermy, and therefore what you do. What is when you take the fish out of the water, you take a picture of it, you measure it, and then you release it again. And when you bring us the picture and you tell us how long it is, how wide it is, you know, the girth and everything like that, then we can make an exact replica of it, just like this one right here, and it looks like it just jumped out of the water.
Yeah, it really does. It's vibrant. It glows as if it were going through the ocean right now.
Absolutely. The guys at the shop are very experienced fishermen, and we do a lot of fishing ourselves.
Is that an important element that they fish as well, the guys that actually make these?
It is a very important element. If you're not a fisherman, you can't make a fish because you don't know what it really looks like. You have to
do they call them fisher persons now rather than fishermen, or do they still
fishermen?
Say fishermen? Still fishermen. I see some small fish here.
Right. These
look like they have wings.
Yeah, these are some flying fish. These are one of the delicacies of dolphins. They like to eat a lot of flying fish. And so
now, would that be an accurate representation of what they actually would look like in the water? They're shiny.
They're shiny, absolutely. This is a representation of them jumping out of the water.
Well, we have much more to see. Let's go.
Absolutely.
Another obviously beautifully prepared fish or fiberglass, which?
fiberglass. There was no actual part of the fish used for this fish to mount it. Therefore, going along with the releaseodermy program, you could have caught this fish, taken a picture, measured it, and still have it on your wall.
You know, I suppose when you say releaseodermy, I guess that these fishermen are really conservationists. They really don't want to kill these fish if they're not going to eat them.
Absolutely. We believe in, you know, the next generation having fishing fun too. And
Okay, and next to the sailfish, some smaller ones. Now, would those be the ones that this fish eats as well?
absolutely,
What
yes.
are those?
These are little ballyhoos. They have different colors. They come out either green or blue. Green if they're in shallow water, blue in deeper waters.
And again, they have that glow as if they're actually swimming through the water right now.
Absolutely.
Of course, I guess you really wouldn't want to have a fish that looks like it had been in the ice cooler for a
Right.
couple hours.
Right. You want to have a representation of something that you caught that just came out of the water wet and looks like a fish.
And these do. Well,
They
now
do.
we're getting ready to go to the taxidermy shop where all of this
Absolutely.
takes place. What are we going to see there?
Well, we're going to see how the fish are made, what they're made from. We're going to see some skin mounts also being made, plaster molds and things like that.
And a lot more. And so here we go to the taxidermy shop, and I know you're not going to want to go away. Stay with us.
The air dances with the waters, which brings the rain that feeds the land, that is home to the animals. All life dances together.
In a world so connected, choosing one environmental cause can be hard. EarthShare is 40 environmental charities working together. You and your company can help by calling 1-800-MY-SHARE.
All life lives, or doesn't, together.
Alan Wolfe back with you, and as promised, we are at the scene of the real action here at NAT Taxidermy in South Dade. Chantel, thank you so much for your grand tour of the finished product.
Thank you for
And
coming.
it has certainly been our pleasure. We're going to continue on now, and I see Jimmy Manello over here. Jimmy,
Hi, how you
you
doing,
are the
Alan?
proprietor of NAT Taxidermy.
Yes, I am.
And it looks like quite an interesting place. It's quite a warm place, I must say.
It is hard working.
And this is really where all of what we previously saw, all of it begins right here.
Right here.
So what do we have as our first order of business in this process of stuffing?
Well, this is a fiberglass mold. We take it off a real fish, and
Can we
this
lift
is,
this?
Yes, we can. This is waxed already with paste wax and polyvinyl alcohol, which is PVA.
Now, how did this mold come about? Was this from a real fish?
This is off of a real fish, molded off out of a sandbox. And from this stage, we take it to the gel coat.
Okay, and that's around here. You had pointed that out earlier.
Yes, sir.
This is some very interesting stuff here. The gel
And-
coat is which one?
The gel coat is the white paint. It's just like making a boat from the inside out. And we gel coat it, and then we put fiberglass in it, inside the mold, just like that. And then it pops out, like so. This
at
is the
that.
back side, and there's the mold. And
this
you
is
know,
the
both
other side. Now, again, this was made from the real fish.
Yes, sir, of course.
And what is the advantage of this, Jimmy, over just taking the
This
fish
is
here
a
and
more
stuffing it?
conservation-minded people would rather have a fiberglass fish than killing the fish. You can let it go, and just
I guess
have it.
future generations can then have the enjoyment of it.
Exactly, of catching it and letting it go and then making a fiberglass mount off of it. And then we glue both sides together and trim it down. And then we trim all the sides down and everything.
And of course, this is in the very raw state. This is at the very, very beginning of what you do.
And we make the fin molds too, like so. These are the fins for the same fish. And then we go over here and we grind them.
Okay, let's take a look at that.
We grind them down.
Okay, this is more further refined now.
Now it's
You've
more
trimmed
refined.
it up.
Exactly. And if the people do keep the fish and eat them, we do put the real teeth in. Like this is a mako jaw right here. We put the real teeth in there.
Take a look at that. They're quite sharp as well.
Yes, sir.
Wow,
And we can put those in any kind of fish
look at that.
if they actually keep it and eat the fish. Is all I need is the teeth. And we use glass eyes like so. We paint the eyes from the inside out,
Different colors.
different colors, whatever fish it might be.
Look at this. My gosh. You know, I went to the eye doctor just last week. He said, hello, how you doing, Alan?
This one fits you better.
Does it really?
No, but yeah, music,
Everybody
glass
wants to
eyes.
be the comedian on Snapshot. You notice that, folks? But this is really neat. You have to pick out just the right one.
Exactly. It's
What
gotta
is
be the
this
right
stage
size.
actually called?
This is the finishing stage. That's the molding stage for the fiberglass stage. And making the real fish, we use a plaster mold and everything, which George will explain to you later.
Which is the more difficult, taking the fish that comes right out of the boat or just doing the fiberglass?
The fish right out of the boat is more difficult.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. It takes longer.
Which looks more accurate, if one looks more accurate than the other?
They look exactly the same. That you couldn't really tell. I'll put two fish up against either one and you couldn't tell.
Okay, well, what's our next order of business here?
The plaster molds.
Okay, let's go. We've gone now from the preliminary stages of this very interesting kind of taxidermy now to the next stage. And we're here at the sandbox. Now, this was a particular problem to get here because, you see, my cameraman Glenn had been playing in the sandbox and we had to get him out. But we've gotten him out. We're here with George Gascon.
Nice to meet you, Alan.
George, thank you so much for taking the time with us and our audience to show us here. You have a fish here.
We got a peacock bass here.
Okay, well,
Okay.
it's kind of interesting looking. It's
This
looking
is
right
a
at me.
totally different stage of taxidermy. This is a skin mount.
What is a skin mount?
It's a real fish.
Oh,
This is how we do the real fish. What we do is we lay it halfway in a sandbox, okay? You see it's laid in halfway. Then we get plaster Paris. We pour it. We pour one layer over the fish. We let that set for like 2 or 3 minutes. Then we go with a stronger, a drier, pour over it, make it a real strong shell. Plaster Paris mold like this, like an oyster.
now this was a mold of ballyhoo that we saw
Exactly.
earlier in the show.
Exactly, exactly.
We saw the finished product.
Exactly. It'll take this process here of making the bedding. It's a bedding that once it sets, we pull the real fish out and we let that mold dry. Once that mold dries, while it's drying, we're cutting the fish up. We're skinning the fish.
Are we talking about a very lengthy process here?
Okay, not really, not really. It takes about 15 minutes for the plaster Paris to set. Okay, you pull the fish out and you set that aside. Then you work on the fish. You skin the fish. Okay, we take the whole carcass out of the fish, take the eyeballs out, and we lay it into a solution of formaldehyde and borax or dry preserve. We'll set it in there for at least an hour. We'll take it out. Then by that time, the mold is already hard enough for us to set the skin back in the mold, the natural anatomy of that fish, the printout that we got out of that mold.
You have to be somewhat of an artist as well as being able to work with your hands in this media.
Exactly. You have to know how to set your skin. You got to taxi your skin back onto that mold, that first printout that you got out of your fish.
And when you say taxi, that's the term taxidermy.
Moving your skin right back into place
Oh, we learned something on that, didn't
on
we?
that mold. And then you go with the fish filler. You throw a little bit of dry preserve first on it. And then you go with
like
your fish.
strawberry preserve or something?
It's a little, it's like a little preservative, just to make sure that, just in case your solution wasn't meant right. And then after that, you go ahead and throw your fish filler. You start packing it on the back side, and it's going to give you about an hour. About
Okay,
an hour
now
to set. The fish filler is going to get like a hard rock.
Yeah, if I may. Once that process is finished, then we move on.
We move on then. And
the
you sew
next
your
one.
fish on the back, and you got to let it set for about an hour. Then you pull your fish out of the mold, and you got your skin out, and that's
where we're going now.
That's
Let's
where we're
go over
going
and
right
take a
now,
look at
right here.
this.
Okay, this is a finished product right here. Okay, these are in the drying stage right now. You see the fins are all carded up.
Yes.
This takes
Now, when you
about
say carded, you put these cardboard pieces here.
to hold the fin open.
Ah.
Okay,
But this is the real animal.
this is the real fish. This takes 2 weeks for it to dry. Okay, you have to.
You have to actually inspect these daily to make sure that they're doing what you want them to do.
exactly.
And these are
'cause
formaldehyde treated?
Yeah, with borax. They're going to shrivel up in certain areas, which will take care of that.
I guess we all would in formaldehyde, right? I mean,
Yeah, exactly,
in there.
exactly. You will take care of that with epoxy, with two-part epoxy. All these shriveled up areas, after the fish is totally dry, you'll go back and you'll retouch all these little wrinkled up areas on the fish, and then you'll take all the cardboard out of the fins, and your fish is ready to paint.
Now, would this epoxy that you use be similar to what we use to fill dents on automobiles? That kind of thing?
Not like Bondo. It's a mixture. You know, you got to mix two-part like Bondo. You know, the hardener and the regular Bondo. But it's just pretty much the same, but it's not Bondo. It's a two-part epoxy, and you can achieve all the scale markings and you know, because if I were to lay epoxy right here, it'll be a bald spot. And see, I got scale markings right here, okay? And I got scale markings here.
I see them.
Okay, so see how there's bald spots right here? When I go with the epoxy, I'm gonna have a bald spot. So I would have to go with, the epoxy gives you 6 hours now. So you can carve it, you can work with it for 6 hours before it gets really hard. To achieve the fake scales.
You actually do really have to be an artist and know what you want.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Another question for you. As a taxidermist, is it important to have a knowledge of what these fish look like when they come out of the water?
Yes, you do. Oh yes.
So being a fisherman,
you got to know
would
what a
really
fish look like. I mean, to achieve an artist's job on a fish, you got to know what you're doing. In other words, if I'm doing a snook, I got to know what a snook looks like.
So, if somebody brings in a fish, they need to have somehow documented what that fish looked like when it was caught or when it was on ice. When do they need to get a picture of that?
That would help in the painting process when we're painting the fish.
I mean, would they need to actually get a picture of that fish as soon as they catch it to preserve what it looks like?
That would be the best thing to do.
You don't want to let it sit for a few hours.
It changes colors. They're like chameleons. As soon as they die, you know, it's like anything that dies, the colors just fade out.
In a way they go.
So that would help as soon as they catch a fish to take a picture of it, and that would help us in the painting process.
Okay, now after this stage, what is our next stage that comes
on the skin
immediately after this?
After the epoxy and all the buildup, and you take all the cardboard off the fins, the fish is nice and dry, then we'll go into the paint booth with the fish.
Okay, let's go. And away we go. Come on along. Well, as promised, we're in the next stage of development in the taxidermy process here. Let's recap what we've done so far. We started with fiberglass.
Yes, we did.
And then we went to?
Skin mounts.
Okay, that was by way of the sandbox.
The sandbox, yeah, the real fish.
Uh-huh.
When it comes to, when it comes to primering a fish, a skin mount is
We're talking about paint here.
Okay, well, yeah, we're painting. Now that we're in the painting process, when it comes to painting a real skin mount, it's totally different primer process. We have to primer the fish first before we start.
Like a car.
Like a car, exactly. On a skin mount, it's a total different process. We got to gloss the fish 2 or 3 times, and we have to let it absorb because it's a real fish, so it's going to suck in the gloss. On a fiberglass fish, we use a totally different primer. We use a regular car primer, which it's a white coat of lacquer paints.
And we're going to see that here in just a moment.
You're going to see that here, yes.
Now, I noticed that you have all the proper filters for your fans and so on. That's very important for the environment.
Oh, yes.
And all of you are conservationists besides.
Exactly.
And so I guess I need to get out of the room here and let you do this.
Yes.
So what's the first order of business on this fish?
The primer coat.
Well, okay, I'm going to move out so you can do it, and you can continue to explain just what's going on.
It's going to get a little noisy now because I'm going to turn on the fan.
We understand. Turn your TV down just a little bit. It's going to get a little noisy.
I got to set my mask on always for health.
Very important.
Yeah.
First order of business, masking up to make sure that he doesn't injure his lungs.
It's good for your lungs to keep this out of your lungs. We need some air here. Yeah, we start from the back. Turn the fish around.
Well, of course, the reason that we can't be in here is obvious. This paint can be very dangerous without the proper safety equipment. And I'm sure that George would not recommend people try this at home. Really amazing is that George can do this without having that paint run. I think I'd probably have it dripping down that fish by now. But of course, I'm not an artist. Okay, George, it looks like you finished the white coat, correct? What comes now?
Okay, after this white coat, this basically it seals all the little cracks after the finishing work on the fiberglass fish. Pretty much on the skin mounts too. It kind of seals all the little, all the little blemishes. Then we go with the silver coat.
And that's next.
That's next, the silver coat.
Let's do it.
Okay.
This is pretty interesting stuff, isn't it? I'll bet you had no idea how taxidermy was done. I know I sure didn't. Of course, you can always learn a lot right here on Snapshot. So we're going to let George continue on with what he's doing. I'm going to get out of the way. And of course, as you said before, George, you have to know what these fish are supposed to look like.
Exactly.
As you can see, it certainly helps to have the proper equipment. He has a table that he can rotate the fish on. Makes it a whole lot easier. And again, this is something you would not want to try to do at home. Well, I can safely come back in now. We don't have the big paint can going. You finished the silver. What is the next step in the process?
All right, Alan, the next step is to define the fish, give it definition, a bottom color that's going to come through. Okay, we have to throw different colors, layers of colors and gloss. Okay, and that's what's going to build the depth to make a fish look like a real fish.
So you want it to look like it's in the water.
Exactly.
Now, does this detailing require a different type of paint tool?
An airbrush.
Let's take a look at it.
Okay. This is an airbrush.
Do you consider yourself an artist?
Yes, I do. Okay, this is a model, this is a Badger Model 150. This is what we use here at NAT. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go with the definition, with the black, which is gonna come through the colors, because these are transparent colors that we're using here.
In other words, everywhere where there's a gill and
Exactly,
and
the
so on.
definition, to give the fish, you know, definition.
Let's take a
body
look.
culture. Okay. I'm gonna have to turn the fan on for this.
Okay, that is required by law, correct?
Yes, it is, and so is the filter and the big fan that we got there. We change a filter every other day.
Well, let's
Okay.
do it. This is going to be interesting. We're going to actually watch George detail the gills of the fish and all of the creases that are on the fish to make the thing look real. This is really an amazing and artistic process. And I'm going to get out of the way while you do that.
I would suggest that.
That certainly adds a lot of definition to this really work of art.
Yes, it does.
Okay, once you have finished detailing, and unfortunately we don't have enough time to do all of it, then what would come next? We need to, first we shut our fan off, I believe, because you don't need it by law once you're not painting.
Exactly.
And then what would be the next step?
Well, after this, I would go with my pearl, and I would go with another definition line.
Custom mixed colors?
Well, I'm not really done with the definition line yet, you know, but after I'm done with the definition line, I would go with custom colors, one layer of color after another. I would
Very
go with the
interesting.
red, with the pearl, with the blue, with the burnt sienna, with the brown.
In other words, get it looking like a fish.
With the gloss in between colors to build a, you know, to build a coat.
Yeah, yeah, very interesting. I wish we had time to do more of this. Unfortunately, we don't. I'd like to call back in, however. Chantel and Jimmy, if you'd come back in. Thanks so much for helping us and taking us for this wonderful tour here at NAT Taxidermy. How can people get a hold of you if they're interested in learning about this?
They can give me a call at 253-5912.
Yeah, take a look at the number on your screen. I know you're going to want to find out more about this. George, thank you so much.
Thank you, Alan,
for
for coming.
taking the time with us. And we thank you for joining us on this edition of Snapshot. Until next time, I'm your host, Alan Wolfe, reminding you, keep your focus right here on Snapshot, and we'll see you then.